Basically, the question I'm going to answer today is, what the heck were all of my weight loss mistakes? And how the hell can you avoid it so you can fast track your results and not run into all the issues that I've gone into, okay, over my 10 years of going through this stuff. So first and foremost, I accredit a lot of my personal growth to being an entrepreneur. Okay. And the reason for that is I just feel like, if you're in business, it's you sink or you swim. You either figure it out or you go out of business. So I've been in that environment for just over 5 years, I think now, where it's like, you sink or you swim. So I've had to grow. And I feel like because of this situation, because of the environment I've been in, I've accelerated my growth. So, what it takes somebody 10 years to learn, I feel like I'm able to learn it in 1 or 2 years. Okay. And because of that, and recently I find myself looking back a lot, over this whole quarantine and this COVID situation, having to close the gym down. I've been really thinking about what have I done so far? What have I learned? And how can I continue to grow and be strong going forward instead of plateauing like a lot of people do and a lot of business owners do in crazy times like this. So I've been looking at my past and, I'm remembering all these funny stories. Like, you guys can only imagine all the crap that I have been through owning a physical gym, how many crazy different people I've dealt with, all the conflicts and the crazy interactions I've had. And I've looked over it and I've been reflecting on it recently. And I was like, you know what? This is really, really cool because, looking back, I can say I would do this different. And I can see how, that character trait that made me act in this way also translated over to how I approach my weight loss and my health, which is really cool. I'm going to show you that connection further into this call. But for an example, okay, so something I've really, really noticed, and more so lately been trying to fix. I've always known I'm a perfectionist. Is anybody else a perfectionist? Like, when you do something, you got to do it right. Like, there's no halfway. You're going to go all in. You're going to spend all the time, all your efforts on it. And that's how I am. But you know what? When it comes to growth, when it comes to reaching any goal, I have personally found that my perfectionist nature has hindered me a lot. And can anybody see where I'm going with this? Has anybody else kind of dealt with this perfectionist nature slowing things down? And an example for me was when Ryan and I were talking about opening up the gym. So we had the plan, but we didn't have a lease yet. We didn't have any equipment. It was an idea. And it was crazy because it came really quick and they were like, okay, let's go for it. And we looked at this building. We were going to go to open our gym in. And then we got a tour and we could start to see where we wanted to lay everything out. And then after the tour was done, we had a talk and we're like, well, are we doing it or are we not doing it? And I was there, and in my mind, I was like, we have to save up X amount of money. We have to go buy X amount of equipment. We have to, there's so much renovations we have to do, and this, and this, and this, and this. And I had a list of everything I wanted to do to make this opening perfect. And because of that, I wanted to push opening the gym about a year. I said, let's wait half a year. And Ryan was like, hell no, we can't wait. So I reluctantly agreed with Ryan and we opened it right away. But had I not had Ryan and had I let that perfectionist nature slow me down, I would have waited over a year. And as a result, I wouldn't have been able to help people for a year. I wouldn't have been put in a situation where I grew so much. And I would have missed out of all the experiences I got in that first year of business. And my perfectionist nature, which I'm now fighting against, is really, really hindering me because, guys, is anything ever going to be perfect? Absolutely not. And guess what? Nothing will be even close to perfect. Nothing ever, forever. Whatever it is, not even just in business, even your weight loss journey. If you've been on this for a while, it ain't perfect. So getting rid of this even when I was in school, even my art assignments were over the top. My essays over the top and they looked pretty. It was just so unnecessary and it hindered me so much. And it wasn't until I realized, perfection equals inaction. If you're going to wait for everything to be perfect, you're never going to get anything done. There's no such thing as the perfect time. There's no such thing as the perfect season, the perfect weather, the perfect time, the perfect event. Nothing ever comes perfect. And that was one of my huge flaws because it has haunted me throughout my whole journey of trying to be perfect, waiting for the right time to do things, waiting for the right approval from someone. And it just slows you down. So that was the number one thing that I've learned throughout My business journey, my professional journey is that perfection nature is going to slow you down. Okay. So first and foremost, okay, if you consider yourself a perfectionist, I asked you, what happens if you're not perfect? What's the worst that can happen if you're not perfect? And that's what I always have to ask myself. What's the worst? Like, if I do wait to get something perfect, what's going to happen? And almost always it's I miss an opportunity. And I don't want anybody to miss an opportunity, right? Every single day, you guys should be learning something new about yourself, right? And are you? Every day, almost every day, you're challenging yourself, you're learning something new. And if you waited to start things perfectly, or do the perfect meal prep, or get the perfect workout in, or find the perfect workout outfit, like nothing gets done. And then you don't learn. So perfection is number one. Number two, along my journey, especially as a young entrepreneur and becoming an overweight entrepreneur, I realized that I was very impatient, very, very, very impatient. Like I just wanted to get everything and I wanted to get it yesterday. And this really screwed me up because if I try to think back to that first year that I opened the gym, I couldn't remember a lot. Like there's a lot of things that I do remember from my first year, but I should remember a lot more. And when I think, why can't I remember this first year in opening my gym? Like this is huge. This is a huge milestone in my life. My first business, my first huge responsibility. I was about 22 when I opened it. Like this was the biggest thing in my life at that point. I can't even remember most of what happened in the first year. Why? Because I was rushing to get everything done. I was rushing to become a successful business owner. I was rushing to set a good example for my clients. I was trying to get somewhere instead of enjoying how to get there. And then that's why after the first year, it kind of snapped one day and I looked at my body and I was so confused. Like I didn't even recognize my body. One day I looked in a full length mirror for the first time in over a year and I was just completely shocked. Like I didn't recognize and I didn't know how I gained over 50 pounds. And it was because I was so impatient. I wanted to have a successful business. I wanted to have a ton of clients who were successful as well. And then I forgot that, getting those goals is by enjoying it in the moment because the journey is a destination. And that's something that I never used to practice or never believe in, right? We always, you always start something. And in the past, even on diets, you start something and you're like, I can't wait to have my cheat meal. I can't wait for it to be done and have a cheat. Right? I can't wait till it's done and I can go back to pizza nights on Friday or drinks with the girls. Like we keep waiting for something to end instead of embracing that this is the new normal. And if I did, and if I, just sat in the moment and wasn't so impatient of getting somewhere, I would have learned a lot more and I would have helped a lot more people sooner by just appreciating the journey. Because, again, what's the only thing you guys can do as leaders? If you want someone to do something, what's the only thing you can do? It's lead by example, right? If you want your husband or your kids to be healthy, what do you have to do? You can't nag them. They won't listen. It's never going to happen. You have to be healthy continually, unwaveringly, until they catch on, until it becomes contagious. And that's something I wish I started doing earlier, not being so impatient and rushing for a goal. Even when I started my weight loss journey, I couldn't wait. I'm like, okay, just 20 more pounds. That'll take me 6 weeks and then I'll be good. And then as soon as I started rushing, I couldn't wait for it to be over. And then when you can't wait for it to be over, you give up on it early. And that's always what happened. Can anybody relate to that? Because you're rushing somewhere, you resent it, it's not fun, and then you give up too early, and then you never get to see, your progress or your results or reap the seeds that you sow. And that's a huge, huge thing. So I was really, really impatient in my business, in the beginning of my professional career. I was also very, very stubborn. Very stubborn. I was hard-headed and I had a big ego. Okay. This gym, I spent like 16 hours a day there when we started. I knew every single client we had by name as soon as they walked in the door. And, it was like my baby, right? Does anybody else have anything that maybe it is your baby, that's your baby, but there's things in your life that you like really, really care about, right? And if anybody attacks them, you get defensive and your walls go up. Right? We all have that, at least that one thing in our life that we're just irrationally defensive over, right? And for me, it was the gym. So when people would make criticisms or they'd offer me my feedback about, try this or change the music to this or whatever, I'd get really defensive. I wouldn't show it, I wouldn't be rude, but I'd sit there and I'd get really angry and I'd stew in my anger and I wouldn't know why. And those thoughts and those comments spent way too much time on my mind, And as a result, because they were taking up so much time, I didn't have time to do anything else, right? When your mind is consumed, right? Like who gets into a fight with their significant other, cool off in separate rooms, and then while you're cooling off, you think of a comeback. You think, oh, I should have said that then. How many people do that? I do that all the time. But why do we feel the need to have to be so witty like that? Like, why do you feel the need to have to say something, right? Because when you're with the situation, it's either right or it's wrong. And if the other person's right, you change it and move on. And if they're wrong, why does it bother you enough that you have to say something back? It's crazy, right? I know you guys do that. I do it in the shower. The shower time's my turn. I'm like, like I'm in the shower, like waving my finger around. And I'm like, oh, I'm killing this fake argument. And that's what I used to do a lot because the gym is a customer service-based industry. So, I mean, to put it not so nice, Ryan and I used to get shit on all the time. And we were young. I was a 22-year-old woman with predominantly at the time male gym members, all young guys, all full of testosterone, lifting weights all the time. And I let people walk over me. I let people say not nice things to me. I let people disrespect me. And that was me for not setting boundaries. But I didn't set boundaries, and I didn't have that open line of communication with anybody because I had that ego there. Because I was too busy thinking of the next snippy thing to say in the shower next time I see the person, instead of, sitting with it, seeing, is there any truth to it? And what can I do moving forward to make it better, regardless of if it's true or not? So that was a big one. Ego is huge. Does anybody else have ego problems? Everybody's hand should be up. We all have egos. Not necessarily, like a woman's ego and a man's ego, they come out in different ways. A man's ego is more aggressive, right? Like I'm sure you guys have seen, like, if you trigger their ego, they get aggressive, right? Women, we tend to be really good at making other people think it's their fault that we're mad, right? We're really good at that. We're really good at being passive-aggressive, like passive-aggressive comments. We're very, very good at that. And that's so just inefficient, right? Like, why are you guys here? You guys are elevating your bodies and you're elevating your mind. Do you think the Dalai Lama or Buddha, do you think they sit in the shower thinking of witty comebacks? No. Do you think they're passive aggressive to the people they talk to? No. Even if these people are rude to them or confrontational to them. It's just crazy. And then the last trait, and this has been, I think, like the biggest thing for me to overcome, is being desperate. Being desperate for your business, being desperate for help, being desperate for clients, being desperate to be liked, like wanting so desperately to be liked, wanting so desperately to be respected, desperate to the point where it sacrificed my own integrity. And an example of that would be, Ryan and I, you guys know, we've hired coaches all the time. We get mentors, we get guides. I remember we hired this one mentor and he just said everything right. We were in this meeting with him. He was saying everything we wanted to hear. And we were so young and we were so desperate to get help and get more knowledge and fast track our lives that we weren't really paying attention, and we didn't do our research into anything other than the call we had with him. And so we went ahead with this coach we were interviewing. And I can confidently say we got zero return on our investment. Zero return on our investment. We spent tens of thousands of dollars on him, and we didn't make a cent in return from it. And I'm not bitter about it. I'm not upset about it, because us not getting a return was a return for me in my mind. Like, we learned a lot from that situation. I learned to be way more diligent going forward. I learned to not be so desperate. You're never desperate where you need to compromise your integrity, compromise your beliefs or your values. Never, ever, ever. Even if it feels desperate, right? Like, you're desperate for results. You're desperate for support from your family. And sometimes you're never going to get these things. And being desperate doesn't command respect from anybody, right? If I were like, please, please, please join Fit Queen, please, please, no one would join, right? I'm confident and I'm secure and I know what we have to offer, and I generally want to help people, and that confidence attracts people. If I was desperate, nobody would want to work with us. Nobody would want to be coached by us. And that's a huge lesson too. And so those are the 4 biggest flaws that I have noticed in myself that has hindered my personal growth along just my journey in life so far. And what's funny is after I kind of wrote those down and figured those out, so me being a perfectionist, me being impatient, me being stubborn, and me being desperate, when I take those 4 traits that held me back in business and they held me back in my relationship and my personal growth, if I take it and move it over here and I analyze my weight loss journey during that time, guess what the exact same traits were that held me back? It's the same thing. Those 4 traits were the same 4 traits that kept me stuck with my weight. And it's so funny because at the time, and what you guys may be thinking right now is you have all these, issues and challenges in your life, and you look at them in different bubbles, right? Relationship is here, family is here, weight loss is here, work is here. And you look at them in different bubbles. And when you look at them in different bubbles, you think each bubble deserves a different solution. But that's the opposite. Look at them in the same bubble and the same solution. It wasn't until I did that and I realized, oh my God, if I work on those 4 things and they help me in that situation advance my career, advance my business, advance my clientele, and I apply them to weight loss, oh my God, it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. We think they're 2 separate problems, which means there's 2 separate solutions, but it's the same concepts just showing up in different ways that are slowing you down. I was a perfectionist, so I waited for the perfect time to start a diet. I was a perfectionist, so I waited for nicer weather to start running again. And it affected that area just like that. I was impatient, so I would rush through a program and I couldn't wait to cheat at the end, and then I'd blow up and fall off. I'd forget to appreciate the journey I'm going on during that program. And then when I was stubborn, I didn't want to change my ways. I didn't want to hear new ideas. I didn't want to hear that I was wrong, that I messed up. And so I was never open to feedback, and I couldn't adjust, and I couldn't be successful long-term because I didn't want to hear what I was doing wrong. So how could I fix it along this weight loss journey? And I was desperate. I was so desperate that I wasted so much time on money on the newest, hottest thing that I heard of, on the newest thing that my friend had tried, that a celebrity endorsed, right? So it's so crazy how all of these negative flaws and character traits that I had been working on so much, once I was working on them, this became easier. My weight loss became easier because everything is interconnected. Is this making sense, ladies? It's pretty cool concept because we think of all these different areas in our life as completely separate. We never bring them all together. Right? We think they're all separate. It's like a spider web, but they are all interconnected. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Have you heard that saying before? How you do one thing is how you do everything. And that's how I actually figured out my mind makeover method, the method that the Academy Queens go through. And I figured that out because, I was stuck with my weight loss. I was being a perfectionist. I was desperate. I was stubborn. I was impatient. And then I realized this industry is against us, right? It's only for short-term success. And then from there, I thought to myself, if how you do one thing is how you do everything, then if I look at people who are successful in everything that they do, I study them, I see what characteristics they all share, then I know what the secret is to making everything harmonious, everything together successful, instead of just focusing on one solution for one area. Is that making sense? So that's what I did. So I studied successful people. Like look at Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon. Look at Elon Musk, the owner of Tesla and SpaceX. Look at Beyonce. Or look at all of these people whose names we know, whose names you'll hear for a long time. I analyzed their characteristics. I said, what is making them successful in all areas? What is it? And that's what I figured out. And that's how I developed my makeover method. You can't just focus on the weight loss and expect it to happen. It's everything. And that's what I've learned. And all those flaws I've had, by fixing those flaws and incorporating my makeover method, and realizing that it's a holistic approach is the biggest like chain breaker for me. That broke the cycle once and for all, right? I tried 7 times. This is what happened. This is the revelation I had that 7th time that I tried. And it's absolutely insane. And that's what you guys are going through right now. So what I want to do, okay? I want you guys to think of a point in time where you did something and you wish you could go back and handle it differently, or say something different, or act different, and make it not weight loss related, not health related. So was it something when you were in school? Was it something you said to your significant other? Think of one thing where you wish you could go back and kind of change how it played out. Okay, does anybody have one? Put your hand up if you have one. Who wants to share? Let's do Casey. You were really excited with your hand up.
Well, okay, so it was not weight loss related, but it was, I used to work at a youth shelter, and the director had a very autocratic leadership style. So there was just, because she's very laissez-faire, she didn't have, like, she wasn't really good at maintaining the staff and everything, so it was very like cliquey and drama-like.
Yep.
So what I wish I did differently was, before I ended up leaving there, so after I left, I ended up reaching out to the chair of the, which is her boss, but what I wish I had done differently was I wish I had reached out to him before, so that way it probably wouldn't have played out the way it did.
Beautiful. So that's perfect. So let's go on a roll here. So looking back, okay, there's a situation, somebody who's not doing the best job in a leadership position. Casey felt uncomfortable, so she left. What she wished she did was reach out before she left to talk about the issues. And this is so cool because, what was holding her back from reaching out beforehand? What was it that held her back? Well, it was probably fear of conflict, right? Fear of being uncomfortable, fear of hurting someone's feelings, like all these negative emotions we have about standing up for ourselves. And if you apply that same concept to your weight loss journey, well, no wonder you suffered for so long. No wonder we get stuck, right? If you're afraid of conflict, if you're afraid of discomfort, if you don't want to hurt people's feelings or get your own feelings hurt, right? It's going to go right to your weight loss journey, right? You're going to get stuck in a cycle. You're not going to want to face, the scale when you had a bad weekend and overate. And so it's so cool to compare and contrast that way, right? So how you do one thing is how you do everything, okay? So let's try to break this down. Who has another story they want to share? Who has another story they want to share? I knew Ishika had her hand up. Go ahead.
So when I was in grade 11, I was going into grade 12 and I was just like tired of everything. So I actually been doing karate since I was like 5, and then I was at my brown belt and I like dropped it in grade 11. And that's like the one thing I really regret. So now I'm going back and I'm going to get it. But it took me like 3 years after I dropped it to realize that it was a bad decision.
There you go. So that's cool. So that's another side of things. So she's regretting a decision she made of stopping something short term, right? She was, whatever the excuses were, I don't have time. It's not that important to me. I'll just come back to it. I'll do it when it's a better time. Like all these things we convince ourselves to doing. Like if anybody else had a hobby before and you stopped it or you put it on hold because life got busy or you got sick and you never picked it back up. That applies to your weight loss journey, right? Like look at that one time that you did that one thing. And you may think you only ever did it that one time. But now think back in your weight loss journey. Did you ever make a similar decision? Absolutely. Did you stop short of your goal? Yes. Did you stop because you told yourself you'd get back on it on Monday after vacation when the weather gets warm, right? So pay attention to your habits. They are the same. They just come out in different ways. Very, very cool. Let's do one more. Who has another story they want to share? I think, Bev, you put your hand up. Beverly, you got a story to share? Go for it. See if you can unmute yourself. There it is.
I had a very similar story to Casey's, where I left the position because I didn't like the way it was being managed, and it was a big regret for me not saying something about it.
Yep, absolutely. And then that's when you go, when you have a situation like that where you deal with, bullies or people who aren't good leaders, that's when you end up in the shower late at night talking to him. That's when that happens all the time. That's what we call with our best comebacks.
Oh yeah, me too.
Isn't that funny? But that's the problem, right? Like if you truly have something that needed to be said, you should have said it. If you have to think of it afterwards, or if what you're thinking of saying you wouldn't say to someone's face, that means it wasn't handled properly, right? If you can't say what you'd said behind their back to their face, there's a problem. There is a disconnect with why you're feeling what you're feeling, right? Because no matter what anybody does to you, no matter what situations you're put in, they shouldn't have the effect to have that control over you. Nobody and nothing should have the control to make you feel upset, to make you feel resentful, to make you, want to tell them off in the shower. Like no one should have that control over you. So same thing with Bev. There was a situation, she didn't speak up, and as a result, it ended less amicably than it could have. Maybe bridges were burned. She didn't get to speak her truth, which is something as women we need to practice daily. And every single time we don't speak our truth, it chips away at our self-esteem and we think we're worthless. And then we don't stand up for ourselves in situations where it really, really matters. And that's the same thing. Take it, apply it to your weight loss journey, Bev, right? Is there times when someone disrespected you and made a comment about your weight and it got to you? Someone who said, why don't you just give up? And you did give up. Someone who doesn't support you and you let them slow you down. Same idea. You avoid conflict. You avoid hurting feelings. You let these people control you, and it translates across the board. Really, really cool concept. So I want everybody to think of a time where that happened to them. Ganeet, did you want to share? I saw you writing a big paragraph. Go ahead.
Okay. So for me, it's just basically when I was starting my business, so I had like an opportunity and everything, like at school in grade 12, that I did my co-op at an entrepreneur center where they could have helped me, and I was really working on my stuff. But the thing is, I wasted so much time, like for my actual design process of my like collection clothing line, of like just trying to perfect it, because I was like, oh, if it's not good, maybe people aren't gonna buy it. And I was just like really doubting myself and like really just trying to perfect it to the max, where like I never even realized, but like co-op just ended, so I like lost an opportunity of like that time that I just had to do it, whereas like I could have been like done by now, basically.
Absolutely. And that is huge, because I don't know if you ladies, I don't know if you have come to this realization yet or not, but being overweight, being unhealthy, and lacking confidence robs you of experiences. It robs you of opportunities. Robs. I don't care if you tell yourself you're confident. I don't care if you think it doesn't. It does. In some way or another, you don't do things because you don't feel confident. You hold yourself back. You don't say things. You don't go places. You don't wear certain things, and it robs you of experiences. And that's exactly, what Ganeet was saying. She was so focused on this one thing, like one track mind. This has got to be perfect before I move on to anything else. And that same concept, if you bring it over to health, if you focus, it's like when I hear, oh, I want to lose weight before I go to the gym. What? I had a consultation at my gym once for one of our programs. And she's like, you know what? Program sounds great. I can't wait to lose 25 pounds with you, but I'm going to come back when I lose 10 and then I'll come. I'm like, how does that work? How does that work? Like, what is the thinking in your head? Right? And now and me as a coach, you can't get mad at someone like that, right? You just can't, right? We have our ways of thinking. I'm not going to change the way you think right there and then, but I can instill some things in you guys, right? So in that situation, it's crazy because this type of thinking, right? Waiting for this so this can happen. Does that thing ever happen? No. If you wait, you're just pushing off all those experiences, right? I've skipped family parties because I was afraid of what they would say. I skipped going out with friends because I felt bloated and uncomfortable in a cute outfit. Like I stopped spending time with Ryan in my first year of business because I just didn't like the way that I looked. And I thought because I didn't like it, he wouldn't like it, although it didn't even bother him. And it's just crazy how much it robs us. So really, really like analyze every situation in your life where you think back where you're in that shower talking back and you wish you could have changed something or said something. Think back to what is that habit? What is that character trait that you ended up being in the shower talking to yourself instead of dealing with it there and then? What is that character trait that you have that's holding you back? Because we all have them. We all have them. And I'm just able to recognize them more. I'm over here. I've overcome them. I can recognize them. I still battle with them, but I am much, much more able to see when they're happening in the moment, right? A lot of the times when I was having this gym, we had open gym in the first year. So all these usually was young men would come in and they do their own workout and they leave. And they leave their weights everywhere. They drop their weights. And I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the confidence to say, please put your weights away. Please don't drop the weights. Basic stuff that's not unreasonable to ask and that I shouldn't have been afraid to ask. Like, it's just gym etiquette. But I was afraid to ask it. I was afraid they were not going to like me. I was afraid they'd leave. I was afraid that, if I did ask, they wouldn't listen and I'd get into a conflict. Like, I was afraid of all these things, and this fear and this lack of confidence in myself, this desperate need, this character flaw of mine, being desperate to be liked, it hindered me from, basic coping mechanisms. Like, you think that was the worst conflict I've ever gotten into my life? No. If someone, can you pick your bag up, sir? Like, you think that's the worst thing I've ever dealt with? No, it's not. But that's how it started. And I've had customers yell at me before, yell at me for changing the music, yell at me for moving their mat a couple inches to the side. Like, I've had people go ballistic on me. And in the moment, it brings you to tears. Like, oh my God, like this feeling of conflict. Is anybody else not a fan of conflict? Does anybody else shy away from conflict? You try to avoid it. Yeah, you try to avoid it. Maybe you underplay it. And that was me 100%. And, anytime, like, if you ever, so to find out if you don't like conflict, whenever you start to talk about something serious, usually with your significant other, if you start to express your feelings, you get teary-eyed immediately. That's usually a sign that you don't like conflict. When you start to talk about something serious and you get emotional and your voice starts to shake almost immediately. That was me. That was me for so long, and I let everybody walk over me, and it applied in my weight loss journey. I never spoke up for myself. I never made time for myself. I let other people put down my weight. I got called pregnant, and I didn't say anything. And all of this stuff, it adds up. It's my flaw. It's nobody else's. It's my flaw that I needed to recognize and then realize this is holding me back in this area, then it's definitely holding me back in this other area. I just need to make the connection and realize it. And what Ganit said was really, it really rings true. Like, you're missing opportunities. Before you know it, that opportunity, that experience, life, it passes you by and you don't get it back. Sure, you'll get other experiences and opportunities, but what makes those different from the ones you just missed? Usually nothing. And for the longest time, my life was missed experience after missed experience. So I could just be alone in my own self-pity. Missed opportunity after missed opportunity. That was my life. That was my first year in business. Just head down, blinders on, make it through, survive. And that's not how I want to live. And that was a huge, hard lesson for me because honestly, looking back, I can't remember a lot from my first year in business. I can't. But that is a year that taught me a lot about my weight loss journey and how to be healthy long-term. And it helped me realize the golden 5, right? Restore responsibility. I forgot that year because I didn't slow down. I didn't appreciate. I didn't take the opportunities that were in front of me, right? I didn't pursue pain, right? It was easier to get an Egg McMuffin every morning than to wake up early and make my own eggs. Like every morning. Do you guys want to know what my year looked like for in a year of owning this gym? We wake up at like 4:35 a.m. We go to the McDonald's drive-thru, get a sausage egg McMuffin with a hash brown. I teach a 6 a.m. class. Then I'd take a nap. I'd get up and teach a 9 a.m. class, then a 10:30 class. Then I'd go and get A&W for lunch. Then I'd go teach the afternoon classes. And then I'd go and get some Indian food on the way home. And repeat. I worked 12 to 16 hours every day, rushing to get home and go to bed. The only times I took time for myself was when I ordered fast food, and that was the happy times in my day. I was happy when I got to eat food. That was the happiest times of my day. Crazy. Isn't that crazy? That was the only time I slowed down and enjoyed myself. And it was temporary. And it was just that dopamine hormone being released. It wasn't even real happiness. And looking back, I can now see why. Because of all these traits I had, I didn't realize they were there. And I didn't realize that they were interrupting my health too. And it's just absolutely insane to me. Has anybody else been in that cycle of eating for happiness, eating for joy. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like when you're excited to go home to eat some ice cream, what? You don't enjoy what you're doing in the day? Like what have we created? What life have we created where we're rushing to go home to eat a tub of Ben & Jerry's and have a fake conversation in the shower? Is that the life we've created, guys? Because, oh my God, let me tell you, I'm not even kidding. That was literally my life for 12 months straight. I had a conversation with my head of every client that disrespected me. I'd tell them what they should have heard, but I'd never do it. I'd never stand up for myself. It was crazy. But now I'm not bitter about it. Now Ryan and I can laugh about it. Now we know how to handle it better. And let me tell you, when I have 0 clients disrespecting me, I have 0 clients disrespecting me. Why? Because every single fit queen is amazing. Every single fit queen we have is like insane. When I tell you, you guys are like my dream ladies to work with, it's insane. Why? Because you attract what you put out. And for the longest time, I attracted shitty people because I was a shit person. And that's a huge lesson to digest. There's people in your life, if there's situations you don't like, if you're in a body you don't like, guess what? That's you. That's all you. And if it's not you, make it you. Make it you, because then you have control to change it. I know it's hard. I know there's obstacles. I know you have challenges that make it super, super hard. I know there's things that, make you want to give up. And you're going to want to give up multiple times along your journey. But a fit queen falls 1,000,000 times, but gets back up 1,000,001 times. That's the game. It's not a game of how many times can I succeed and have awesome results. It's a game of how many times can I fall on my face and get back up. You get really tough. You build your tolerance. You recognize those character flaws and you keep building and building and building and building. And then everything in your life, everything you're surrounded with, your job, your significant other, your family, your pets, your friends, everything in life falls into place like a puzzle, like the perfect puzzle. So if you have pieces that aren't meshing together, if you have pieces that aren't fitting together, it just means you haven't been trying long enough. That's all. And if you are here, it will happen. If you are a fit queen, you guys know it will happen. You guys can sleep soundly and sleep peacefully because you know that no whatever issue you have, you're working on. So why stress about it? I used to spend nights crying because I was so upset that someone said this to me, or I let this client down, or he yelled at me because I put EDM music on when I promised to put country music on that day. That stuff would make me cry. That stuff would make me cry. I'm like, why can't I please these people? Why do I always mess up? What's wrong with me? But it's nothing. Raise your standards and then meet them yourself. Meet them yourself. Set your standards and make sure you're meeting your own standards. Because a lot of the times we're hypocritical in that. We expect something of other people, but we don't expect it of ourselves. So if you expect other things, if you expect a high standard for everybody else, you got to surpass that. Otherwise, people won't know how to treat you. And that took me a long time to realize. But now, like I said, what you attract or what you put out there, you attract tenfold. That's why it's so important to give and give and give and give and give, because everything comes around, right? And that's a big lesson I've learned in business, in weight loss, and in life. Give, 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 and it will come back. And stand up for yourself. That's my biggest life lesson. So much so, actually. So this is really cool. I'll share with you guys where I am right now in my personal growth. I'll get a little vulnerable with you guys. So maybe right now you guys are still learning how to stand up for yourself, right? You're still finding your voice in some way, right? You can all say you're still in that phase for the most part. So I'm not in that phase anymore. I was way over here, way timid, shy, insecure, getting stepped all over in the beginning. This is where I am. And now because of this, I went so far this way to compensate for it that now I don't take shit from anybody. I voice my opinion, whether they want to hear it or not. And I'm over here. But there's a happy medium. There's got to be a happy medium. So right now I'm working on my happy medium. That's where I am in my personal growth. My goal is to, I figured out how to stand up for myself. I know how to voice my opinion. Now I got to mesh it so that, you know, if people don't agree with me, if I don't agree with people, that's okay. We can agree to disagree, and we can still, you know, get on, and we can still have a great relationship and a good friendship and learn from one another. That's where I'm at. Especially with everything going on in the world, I just think that's a huge key point. Just, it's okay to, agree to disagree. What's so wrong with that? What's so wrong with that? I don't get it. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's the only way to be. If we all agreed, I don't know, it's pretty boring. It's a pretty boring life. If we all like the same shows, if we all like the same music, if we all had the same political views, if we all had the same hobbies and interests, I think that's pretty boring. And how would we hear about all the new shows on Netflix, right? We'd all be watching the same episodes over and over again. So it's important now we're different. But yeah, guys, so that was a big revelation for me. Like I said, my big thing right now is finding that happy medium. I hope I can inspire you guys to stand up for yourself. I hope I can inspire you guys to be kind to yourselves, and in turn, be kind to one another. That's huge. I think if you find yourself passing judgment a lot, if you find yourself harboring a lot of passive aggressiveness, I think it's largely because you are uncertain of something. You are upset at yourself for something. And I think you need to sit down with yourself and ask yourself, what the hell, why am I reacting this way? What the hell could it come from? And then you'll be much more free and open to just everything life throws at you, every opinion you hear, every decision that's made. And it's just a happier life. It's a happier life when, you know, people can throw things at you and they just slide right off, right? And you attract good people, and people with your common views stick around, and people who don't, but you both respect each other either way. And I think that's huge in a health journey. So important, because is everybody in your life 100% supportive of you saying no to the birthday cake? No. Are some people actually offended? Yeah. Quite a few. Sometimes your family members are offended if you refuse food. They're offended if you get too skinny, right? They'll make comments. So it's okay. It's okay. You know in your heart you're doing what you need to do. And if you're constantly working on your flaws and recognizing them, you'll attract the right kind of people. And that energy won't bother you anymore, and you won't surround yourself with it as much, right? I don't know if you guys, has anybody started cutting people out of their life? Wow, good for you guys. Yeah. Has anybody started changing people's views in their life instead of having to cut them out? Sometimes people will come with you. Sometimes you will have to cut them out. But that's just, again, part of your health journey, right? If you want to get somewhere you've never been before, do you think the same people that have already stuck around are going to be the ones that get you there? Usually not, right? Even with parents, right? Parents, I love my mom. I love my dad. I am the strong woman I am today because of everything that they've instilled in me. But they made it here in life, right? And now I've made it here in life. So I can't, get advice on certain things from them. Otherwise, I stay here. Right? That's why I'm so big on coaches and mentors, right? You want to take advice. You want to be around people who are higher than you, elevated on the next level of life so that they can bring you up instead of being stagnant. Because when you don't move, that's the same as going backwards, right? A year from now, I will not be the same person. 10 years from now, oh my God, I can't wait. Can you guys imagine where you're going to be a year from now? Can you imagine who the hell, like how strong you are up here? How unstoppable you are, and then 10 years, and then 20 years, the life you've created, that's exciting. That's exciting. And that's what this is about. It goes beyond weight loss. It goes beyond health. It goes beyond, it's like, live the life you want, not the life you're rushing through, not the life you're rushing to get home and eat Ben and Jerry's and yell in the shower. Like, seriously. Like, I know you all do it. I know you all do it still. And it's a process. I do it every now and then. But you just have to, I want you guys to just be super hyper aware of the way you're reacting to everything. Because the whole purpose of this call, how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you react negatively, if you overreact, if you shut down, if you're defensive, if your ego kicks in, guaranteed that affects your weight loss journey in some way. Guaranteed. You need to be strong enough to make that connection and cut that tie. Otherwise, you'll always be stuck in this cycle. And where you are now is where you'll always stay. You'll never make it past this point. right? A lot of fit queens will go through their journey, and they'll lose lots of weight, and they'll change their mindset, and they'll be these new people, but then they'll get stuck. Let's say they started at 230 pounds, and then they get stuck at like 150 pounds. Why? Because they have the habit and they have the mind of a 150-pound woman. If you get stuck at a weight, it's because your habits are that of that person's weight. If you've been stuck at 150 for 4 weeks, it's because you can't break the habits of a 150-pound woman. And maybe, just maybe, you need to not look in the weight loss category, in the health category, to figure out why. Maybe it goes further than that. And that's the point of this call. And that's why I spent my whole life researching. That's the whole reason this actually works, is because I realized that. It's up here. It's that mind makeover. If you want to lose weight, you can't just become good at losing weight. You got to become successful in every area. And that's what I hope for you guys. So really quickly, guys, what is your takeaway? What's the thing that spoke to you the most? What's the thing that you're going to need to do from now on to combat your flaws? Or maybe what is a flaw that you realize that you have had? What are these things? How are we going to apply this, ladies? Love yourself. Absolutely, Casey. Just do it. Perfect isn't real. Perfect is so not real, and it is a killer of dreams. It is worse than somebody who jumps into something without even checking anything. Be true to yourself first. Perfection hinders progress. Amen. Lindsay, stop believing you're a certain weight. Love others and love yourself. Don't let others treat you anyway. Absolutely. You guys got it. That's what it is. Treat yourself right. Everybody else will treat you right. That's how it works. It's the law of attraction. And pay attention to how you do one thing, because it's how you do everything.